Hi, this is Ronnie, Amber's Night, coming at you with a video. Discussion happening on the YouTube RPG Brigade Facebook page. It's a sort of double sort of pronged discussion over the business of power gaming, and also whether people criticizing power gamers means that the RPG Brigade community page is not a community. I'd like to address both those points. First of all, on the business of community. Of course we're a community. Communities don't have to agree on every aspect of every nuance of a particular pastime, but a community, particularly an online community, is one where everyone is joined by a particular love for a specific pastime or ideology, be it political, social, religious, whatever. The YouTube RPG Brigade Facebook page and the RPG Brigade community is a community because we are all drawn together by our love of role-playing games. Now that doesn't mean we have to agree with every single part of what is a very wide-ranging hobby. For example, to take example from me, I don't use miniatures. I don't use minis in role-playing games. I don't agree with them, I don't like them, so I don't use them. I use them in wargaming, I use them in skirmish games, I use them in board games and so on, but not for role-playing games. There are some that do. That's up to them. It's not something I would ever do. If I were playing in one of their games, I would have to accept that minis were in play. If they were playing in one of my games, they'd have to accept that minis weren't there. But, you know, that's the only time that fence has to be crossed. Otherwise, minis users can do it, non-minis users can do it, and quite frankly, we're still all role players. Which brings me to power gamers. Now, power gamers are not restricted to just players. Power gaming can also include games masters as well. I've seen power gamer players, I've seen power gamer GMs in action. My views on power gaming are very, very simple. I don't approve of it. I don't like it. It's one thing to, I suppose, optimize. I've seen this word used. Optimize a character, trying to get the best out of what you've got. That's fair enough. You're trying to make the very best barbarian. You're trying to make the very best monk. You're trying to make the very best elven ranger. The best starfighter pilot that you can get with whatever system you use. That's fair enough. We're all trying to eke the points out. Power gaming to me begins and ends at the table. It's about a style of play rather than a way of creating character. Although the style of play seeps into how they make the character, because they make the character with that style of play intention. Power gamers, in my mind, are simply those who they see a role-playing game as something you win or lose, be it as a player or a GM. If they're a player, the idea is to beat the GM, and if necessary, some of the other players as well, and be the best player. There can be only one. No, that's shit. If you're a GM, power gaming GM, it's beat the players. If you beat the players, you win. Got news for all power gamers out there. No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't win. You don't win because how you view role-playing games simply isn't how role-playing games are, or ever have been. I'm a GM. I'm mostly GM. I'm about to play a game of Fate, actually. I'm going to make up a character this weekend. I'm gonna play Fate for the first time, because I'm going to play as a guy going to run the Camelot Trigger campaign setting for Fate. I'm going to have a go at that. But usually I GM, and I like GMing. I enjoy the mental challenge of it. Do I win? Yes, but not in the sense of beating players. If I run a scenario, and at the end of that scenario, the players turn around to me and say, "Yeah, that was alright," I feel I failed, that I have lost, because the players have not had a good time. Even if they won, even if they defeated everyone, if they're sort of sitting there going, "Yeah, it's alright. Who's running something next time?" I would feel kind of down about that. If they turn around at the end of the scenarios, whether their character survived or not, and they turn around and say, "Yeah, that was good, I enjoyed that," when you run another one, that's a win. If my players have had a great time, really enjoyed the challenge that's been set them, then to me, that's a win. This notion that it isn't, I don't get this idea of trying to beat people, or obnoxiously hogging the spotlight as if you can win the game by being the person who does the most, has the most, hogs the spotlight. No time for gamers like that. Anyone who had that style of play in mind wouldn't last long in one of my games, because the player would be asked to leave. Or moreover, the player would get to the end of the session and then asked not to come back. I don't like confrontation, but one has to be ruthless at some point. I will accept that power gaming is a style of play. It's just not one that I think is particularly healthy for the hobby. But I do agree with the sentiment that they are power gamers, and as such, people should accept that that's a style of play. And if you've got a bunch of power gamers in a game together, more power to them. Poor choice of words. If that's the way they like it, let's power game. Power game away. I think it's entirely proper that people can critique styles of play. In so much as you can state that style of play A you do not like for this reason. And as long as you're not being derisory, derogatory, using foul language and all the rest of it, I think you can critique. I think that's perfectly fine. It's called freedom of speech. And as long as you don't abuse that freedom of speech, go for it. Certainly anyone who falls into that style of play can voice a rebuttal. Again, as long as it's respectful and so on. That's called the right of reply. It's also a part of free speech. But unless you actually, unless you're actually being, unless you're actually victimizing someone, actually pointing someone out deliberately naming and shaming them, I guess. You really shouldn't get into any kind of war with people. Let's be respectful on the Facebook page. By all means, disagree, but let's disagree with some decorum. That's all I really have to say on that. We are a community. It doesn't mean we have to all agree the same things at all times. That's called a cult. And I have no real wish or hankering to be in a cult. I'm happy to be in a community, but not a cult or a community. But I'm happy to be in this community. We're not all going to agree on things. That's fine. As long as we're respectful, great. We can be passionate. We can even use some quite stern language with our passion. God knows I've done it. But you know, there's let's keep it let's keep it productive and constructive. So I do not agree that we're not a community. I do agree that power gamers are gamers, but I fully agree that as a style of play, people have a right, within reason, to critique it. And if necessary, criticize it. I criticize it and do so without a pang on my conscience. So that's what I have really got to say on this subject, and I'll be back soon with another video.